I'm excited for Mr. Matthew Gardner to give us some more information. All right, welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Good morning. How is everyone? Great. Glad to hear it. Well, first I'd like to thank the entire team at Windermere for asking me to come along and speak to you today. And it's great to speak in public again. Literally, I went 548 days without speaking in public, which for an economist and a public speaker is horrible. And no, Zoom doesn't work. It doesn't count. 110 Zoom speeches, yeah, no. And I think we're getting a bit tired of that. So I plan on talking to you today. We're going to do a top-to-bottom approach. And what I'll do is we'll start talking about the US economy, what's happening there, US housing market, because that is going to be important. We'll then distill that down to what's happening in your metro area, in Benton County and Franklin County, what I see happening from an economic standpoint. But most importantly, seeing as you guys sell houses, what's going on with the housing market. So to start out with, big picture, growth. Now this is GDP, it's how we define economic recessions and growth. You can see here in the second quarter of 2020, we went through the biggest economic contraction in modern history, literally. Why? Well, we turned the economic lights off in March. So major contraction, but then that was immediately followed by the biggest expansion in history. So are we getting back to normal? In essence, yes. We're today roughly where we were before the pandemic started. And you see my forecast going forward. We'll probably see about 6.5% growth in the next quarter, tapering down, which it's going to, still staying above that 2% mark. And if you look at it on an annualized basis, it's very solid growth this year, tapering down, but still above average for next year. What's going on here? Well, we are still spending money, even if we are staying at home more. We're still not so much hoarding back the money which we did for a while. The savings rate went up massively back when the pandemic hit, but we feel a bit more comfortable now. So as we go forward, and we are a nation of consumers, 70% of our economy is us buying stuff. And yes, we've been buying a lot of it from Amazon. And for everyone in Seattle, by the way, thank you very much for doing that. Bezos needs the money after that divorce. Anyway, so we do that. So growth is good. On the employment standpoint, this is remarkable. If you go back from October 2010 to when the pandemic hit, we added a bit more than 22 million jobs to the economy. We lost more than that number in 2 months. Really quite extraordinary. But you can see here we are starting to improve. That little notch you see on the green line on the right, that was December numbers. Last December, mainly driven down by leisure and hospitality, bars, restaurants, and certainly hotels. But it's getting there. But we still have got a long way to go before we're going to get back to the full employment level that we were. And on a month-over-month change, that 235,000 number we saw last week, number for August, it was horrible. But I think September numbers are going to be significantly higher. My forecast is probably close to 900,000. What's happening there is the expiration of the enhanced unemployment benefits. A lot of people are saying, you know what? No, I'm just going to sit here and get paid, and I'm not going to go back to work. As that expires, and it already has, come Labor Day, some states it's going to continue for another 3 or 4 weeks. I expect to see a lot of people now being forced to get back into the workplace. So we're going to say going forward, we saw obviously massive job increases back last June. We had good August, September numbers were horrible, but I think it is going to notch back up. And if you look at how the pandemic impacted employment, this is interesting. So the bars to the left, the jobs obviously lost. Who got hit the most? Obviously hotels, bars, restaurants, almost 8.5 million jobs lost. They've recovered about 6.5 million back. They're having a hard time though going forward. Again, it's finding those employees. And a lot of employees in hotels are saying, well, hang on, you canned me almost immediately. Now you want me to come back, but you're not going to pay me more. And I've got to clean rooms that I believe people have got the plague. So it's going to be hard. So because of that, the same thing with restaurants. In fact, I live in downtown Seattle. There's a McMinimans close to where I live. And it had a big sign over the door, $1,000 bonus for a line cook. Yeah, I kid you not. So it's a big problem in that industry. So it's not just hotels, it is bars, it is restaurants, on getting people to come back to work. What does that mean? Ultimately, they're going to have to be paid more. So we're going to start seeing some fairly significant wage inflation. So at the top is leisure, education, retail, unsurprising. If you look at the bottom, I mean, financial activities, really not very much. Information, technology, again, very limited. So what does this mean to the housing market? It means that the pandemic impacted renters far more so than homeowners. Point of fact. And which is why, and we'll talk about the housing market momentarily, that it really has been very bifurcated. Those face-to-face industries are still suffering. Those where they can work from home. I'll be honest with you, I don't know anyone that lost their job because of the pandemic. All my friends, yes, they're all working from home, but they were all still working because they're not involved in those industries which were really hard impacted by the pandemic. So, in split, people leaving their jobs. They're saying, taking a fresh approach. Employee quits almost 4 million in the month, and that would be in July, most recent data that's out there. It is a remarkable number. People say, I'm going to do something else. I'm just going to quit my job. I don't like it. I'm going to figure out something else to do. What it is, who knows? Because the other problem we have is this. There's almost more than 10.5 million job openings in America today. That is an insane number. We've never seen a number like that in history. So we know we've got a lot of pent-up demand by companies. They can't find employees. Employees are leaving, doing something else, whatever that may be. Lot of job openings out there. And the forecast going forward, now I need to probably explain this to you. So if you take the 734 number, that's 734,000 jobs per month for that quarter. So that's going to be the quarterly average. Still very solid, tapering down, but we're not going to get back to full employment, in my opinion, until sometime mid to late 2022. And that assumes that the Delta variant, the Lambda variant, who knows what other variants of COVID are going to happen. And that's really what's driving all economists to drink, because it makes it, I kid you not, my liver has been bad way for the last year and a half, because it makes forecasting very, very hard. I can forecast most things. I can forecast impacts of changing governments and these kinds of things. I can't forecast a bug. I wish I could, I can't. So this is the presumption, and I will mention that in terms of what's going forward with COVID. I really believe that the latest boost or increase we've seen is of the Delta variant. It's going to be fairly short-lived. I really expect those numbers to start pulling back fairly significantly starting at the end of this month into October. Why can I say that? It's exactly what happened in Great Britain and in India when the Delta variants hit there. So a massive spike, but it dropped down very, very quickly. So I'm hopeful that will be the case. But it will also help with more people getting a vaccine, but I can't talk politics. I'm going to leave that one alone. So we are going to keep on adding jobs going forward. That's going to be a good thing. On the unemployment side, almost 15% was the worst. Down right now, below 6, but actually just slightly above 5. That's good. And again, it's going to drop down, basically suggesting we will be back to full employment by middle to late 2022. So it's going to be a while longer, but we are certainly going to get there. So what do I think? Vaccine hesitancy, and this not necessarily in Washington state, believe it or not, but it is in states like Florida specifically. 1 in 4 new COVID cases is in Florida. 1 in 4, 25%. And that's followed by Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. So there's a lot of these areas that just don't want to take it. And that, I think, is holding back the overall greater economy. But hopefully that will change in time. Hiring, service sector. And I give speeches to businesses. I really am telling them, brace yourselves, you're going to have to pay more. And they say, well, I can't. Well, yes, you will, but the trouble is by doing it, what does that mean? They're going to take those increased wages and pass it directly on to the end user. So your beer will cost you more, your meals out will cost you more. And that obviously is inflationary. And I don't have a slide on inflation because of the length of time I'm given to talk today, but I will tell you one thing. If you are worried about that 5% inflation rate, don't be. What's driving it? Used cars. Used car prices are up 130% year over year. 130%. It's absolute insanity. So if you take, and you can't really take year over year on anything right now. I mean, look at where we were last summer, right? That makes a sense. So if you take the annualized inflation rate going back to, let's say, starting in February, and then you deduct used cars, which, by the way, are about 0.8% of CPI, of inflation. What's the real inflation rate? About 3%. Is it elevated? Yes, it is. But it is not the big headline number that everyone's getting scared about. No, we're not going to go back to a world of the late 1970s or even 1980s. When we saw that raging 70s style inflation, right? It's a very, very different world today than we were in there. And I will just give you a couple of examples. One is union participation. 1 in 3 jobs in America back in the 70s was a union job. It's now just under 11%. No collective bargaining. We're also importing a lot more, cheap imports. Also, we're also becoming energy independent, which we weren't before. And going way, way back, obviously during the Nixon administration, there was price fixing. So you can't conflate the two things. Yes, inflation is going to stay somewhat elevated, around that 3% mark through next year, but it's going to pull back. The Federal Reserve is not worried about it. They will start increasing the Fed funds rate, but it's going to be gradual. We're not going to see a massive spike in it. And they probably won't start doing that until sometime next year. So don't be overly cautious about inflation. Legislation, so this would be infrastructure spending, roads, rail, high-speed internet. Yes, it's a great idea. I will believe it when I see it. So right now, there's a lot of money being talked about, $3.5 trillion. Now, let's see if it actually happens or not. Is it needed? Absolutely it is. But getting anything through Congress, as you know, is not exactly the easiest thing to do. So don't hold your breath. If it happens, it will be a great boon for the economy, in my opinion. But I can't guarantee that it will or it won't. Yeah, the Delta variant, yes, my liver, not good. But full recovery in terms of our economy, all things being equal by mid to latter part 2022. All right, so that's the big picture economy. Let's look at the housing market. Existing homes, there's nothing to buy. I'm preaching to the choir here, I know. So you look at these. Now, obviously, a big spike we saw was obviously after the bursting of the housing bubble. Now, we've seen 3 or 4 months of very modest increases, but it's not even close to the level that you need to see to define a balanced market. But if you look at new listings, now this is going to be important. I'll talk more about this a bit later on. People say, well, how can we be selling 6 million homes a year in America when there's nothing to buy? Well, it's the way it's calculated. Now, if you look at inventory of homes for sale is taken on a specific day of the month, normally the last day of the month. Yet new listings are the total number of new listings that have come on during that month. So if a home comes on the 2nd of the month and goes pending by the 5th, which generally speaking is what's happening, it's not included. So it's somewhat confusing, certainly for the consumer. And so we are seeing turnover. Homes are being sold, they are coming to market, they aren't necessarily being shown here. Sales, I was getting, probably it would be April or May of last year, I was getting more phone calls, not just from brokers, but from the media as well, saying, COVID's going to cause a collapse of the housing market. I'm like, no, it's not. I was actually on CBS talking about it, and there's one of the talking heads, this guy from the East Coast, saying, oh no, it's going to be a collapse again. I'm like, no, it's not. Who was right? Me. And I say that because literally brokers took a couple of weeks off. That was it. So we saw that horrible drop, but look at the following month. Really quite remarkable. 6 million transactions, again, the latest data shows on an annualized basis, still doing well, and actually better in terms of overall sales than we've seen since before the housing market crashed. So there is a lot of demand. And COVID-19 has driven a lot of that demand. We are seeing a lot of second home purchases going on right now in Montana, of all places. And it's not just Montana, it's here as well. But Montana's interesting because they're seeing a massive influx of second home buyers coming in from Los Angeles and from Manhattan. Now, I want to see a Los Angelian survive a Bozeman winter. It will be a blaster, believe me. So we're seeing a lot going, and also people deciding where they want to live. Now, a lot of people that were working in urban markets, and Seattle is certainly a good example, as is Portland, and they were renters, got to be close to where their office is. Well, a lot of their companies have said, no, you can work from home permanently or part-time. So what does that mean to them? Well, that means to them that they can say, well, great, I will put up with a lousy commute, certainly if you're in Seattle or even in Portland, because if you think about housing prices, they get more expensive the closer to the job centres you get, because there's a value to our time. But I mean, my elder son's a great example of this. He and his wife, both working for Amazon, both told by Amazon, you don't ever have to come back to work in an office again. And they were paying a lot of money in rent. What did they do? Well, they got out their lease, they went down to outside of Portland, bought a house, and their payment, mortgage payment, is significantly lower than their rent was. So we actually see a lot of demand being pulled forward because of people's ability to move, whereas they were kind of stuck before. So you're seeing a lot of that going on. I think that's going to continue. So you look at this is single family on the top. Again, solid there, did see that drop down. This is month over month. And on the multifamily side, again, the condos co-ops, a lot of people thought, well, hang on, that market's going to collapse. Because who wants to live next to 400 of their closest friends now? And that's true. But again, it's something which did drop down. We actually did see some price corrections going on in the condo world. But as prices came down, there are a lot of people that wanted to live or did want to live in a condo that couldn't afford it before, and now they can. So even that market has picked up pretty well. Last couple of months is a bit of a different thing. Sale prices, this is insanity. This is America. We're not talking about Manhattan here. Well, $360,000 is a huge amount of money. Now, you see the ups and downs. That's only because you don't adjust it for seasonality. So, but that trend has been going up, quite frankly, since 2012. When we emerged from the bursting of housing bubble, on average, a home price, if you bought in 2012, more than likely your home has doubled in value in America. That is amazing. It really is. Why? Well, we'll talk about why in a second. So, and on the single family side, it's about what, 370 to shy of, about 300 on condos. But again, less appreciation in the multifamily world than single family. Single family has done insanely well. Now, how can home prices go up so much since we didn't see wages go up to meet it? Let's look at why. So, start off with, if you look at this, it goes back to 1990. This is the median sale price of all homes in the country. It's that big build-up, the housing bubble, then the bubble burst, which was always going to happen. I know that because my dog qualified for a mortgage. So it dropped back down, and now it has gone parabolic. So, but at the same time, what happened to mortgage rates? Yeah. So you look at home prices. Home prices are up by almost 280% between 1990 and today. But mortgage rates drop from 10 to 3%. That increases your buying power. For every 1 percentage point drop in mortgage rates, you can afford to buy 10% more house. The 1 in 10 rule always works. So that is part of the reason why we've seen this price growth. But let's be a bit more than that. Let's look at it on a nominal basis, which we know, 280%. Nominal is unadjusted for inflation. You have to adjust it for inflation. So the value of a dollar today is very different to the value of a dollar in 1990. So what happens when you adjust sale prices for inflation? Well, yeah, it's still gone up, but by less than 90%. So that's a third of what the nominal number is. So is it a thing to worry about? No, I don't think it is, just given that. But then let's take that the inflation adjusted price, and what does that mean to mortgage payments? Well, on the nominal basis, mortgage payments are up by almost 83%. But if you take the inflation-adjusted home price and the prevailing mortgage rate, guess what? Real payments are actually lower today than they were in 1990. That's the thing that the media, there's any media here? Not sure. Any press here? No, good. All right. Media love bad news. They never call the Economist when something good's happening. When the world's falling apart, my phone rings off the hook. So they try and call me and say, well, these home prices are ridiculous, it's another housing bubble. No, it's not. If it was, absolutely, I would be screaming it from the rafters. But in real terms, that is not the case. So a lot of your clients maybe are saying, I'm getting worried about buying because I think it's another housing bubble forming. I just don't see it. And right now, down payments are significantly higher than they were. Credit quality, the median FICO score is 758. Now the old 327s, 228s, the Ninja loans, Ninja, no income, no job or assets, Alt A, liar loans, all these things that are out there, mortgage products don't exist anymore. And also ARMs, utilization of adjustable rate mortgages. Back in 2005, 1 in 3 mortgages was an ARM. It's now about 4%. So it's a very, very different world. Now we can afford to buy the house, technically speaking, even though prices have been going up. So in real terms, am I worried about the housing market today? No, I'm not. But can prices continue to increase at the rate they have? No, they can't. So if you look at sales, I think it's sale prices, 15% is be the year-over-year price for 2021. It's a very, very significant number. But it is going to pull back. That's still, even at about 4.5%, again, this is countrywide, not locally, that's still above the long-term average. Historically, home prices go up by inflation, so it's lower than that, but there are some headwinds, and the headwinds are going to be affordability, because, again, we're not seeing those wages increase, and also mortgage rates. So what's going on? Well, in terms of sales first. Sales this year, about 6 million. Next year, a hair above that. We are still supply starved. What's going on there? We've got a lot of younger first-time buyers that want to buy. The trouble is we're not building enough housing for them, for reasons I'll talk about a bit later on. And that's going to be important. Think about it this way. There's 9.5 million millennials who will be turning 30 in the next 24 months. 30 is the median age of a first-time buyer. What are they going to buy and where are they going to buy it? They don't want massive houses, believe it or not. They're happy with 12, 1,400, 1,600 square foot townhomes, they're fine. But if you are a builder here and you want to build for millennials, add one thing to the unit: a dog shower. I'm really not kidding. In Seattle, people drop $400 a month on doggy babysitting. When I was a kid, doggy babysitting was me taking my dog and kicking it out to the yard. So they spend money on their animals. But you've got a massive number of these young kids getting older. 69% of millennials think that buying a home will be the most astute financial investment they will ever make. Literally. Problem what they're worried about, coming up with a down payment. Half of them are still going to the bank of mum and dad. Believe me, I know. And the other half are somehow saving up for it. So they want to buy. I mean, they're getting into real relationships now, thinking about families and children. If you're a builder, if you can build for that first-time buyer, you will do extraordinarily well. That's a massive, and not just them, by the way. After millennials, you've got Gen Y after that, and they want to buy homes as well. So the American dream absolutely is still alive. So sales will increase modestly. Mortgage rates. So this is my forecast for mortgage rates. We will not see a conventional 30-year fixed rate above 4% until 2023. I know it's kind of scary. I'm not sure if do I have a slide in here? No, I don't. All right, so I actually have a virtual happy hours from friends of mine. We went through the pandemic together. The Chief Economist for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHFA. They're a dry group, but whoa. And in essence, everyone other than the Mortgage Bankers Association, their Chief Economist says that by the end of 2022, mortgage rates will be in the 4s. Everyone else, NAR, me, Fannie, Freddie, we all think they're actually going to stay in the 3s. Yes, they're going to gradually trend up, but still from an historic perspective, what's the long-term average for a 30-year fixed rate conventional mortgage? 7.5%. Now, it's certainly not the 20% we saw in 1982, but we'll see a modest increase now as rates climb. Even though they're climbing modestly, that is going to act as a headwind to people's buying power. But it's also going to pull some of that demand forward. They're going to want to get in now if they can, rather than wait to see rates go up and their buying power diminish. So rates are going to rise, but still from an historic perspective, remarkably cheap. Forbearance. I probably get more emails from our brokers asking me questions about forbearance than anything else. Forbearance, I'm sure you are all aware, but for those of you that aren't, program implemented by the FHFA when the pandemic hit, which basically said it's not your fault if you've been furloughed or laid off. You can stay in your home, we won't foreclose, you can stop making your mortgage payments for a period of time. But you will still owe the bank at the end of it, either through refinancing or extending the term of the loan to get yourself back on the straight and narrow again. People thought it's a silly thing to do. I didn't. It's a remarkably smart thing to do, and it worked. So that top chart, the number of homes in forbearance was above 4.5 million back when the pandemic hit. Right now, about 1.7, considerably lower. And the share of homes in forbearance, according to two different companies, at the MBA and also Black Knight, still running around 3%. So it has pulled down from almost 1 in 10 that we saw when the pandemic first hit. So it is getting better. Now, forbearance is now ended. You can't apply for it again. It's being extended for a lot of people, but people are gradually winding off that program. That number's going to drop. You see, what people were thinking about is, why do I pay a lot of money for a house now when all the homes in forbearance are going to get foreclosed on, and I'll pick up a house on the cheap? No. Biggest reason is people have a lot of equity in their homes. Are they going to lose the equity by going into foreclosure? No, they won't. Foreclosure rates are certainly going to rise, and my forecast about 500,000 next year. That might sound like a lot. Actually, it's the long-term average. So we will see a modest increase, but not that much at all. And so if you think about it, the latest numbers, which was the week ending end of August, rather, number of homes in forbearance, 1.7 million. That's the value, about $331 billion in value of the mortgage product itself. 3.2%, again, not bad. But this bottom one is fine. So all the owners that are currently in forbearance, the median home equity is above $80,000. So do you really think people are going to walk away from that and allow themselves to be foreclosed on? No. Worst comes to worst, if they can't get back on their feet, they are going to sell into a rabid market. Now, if you bought your home before 2012, you've got median $100,000 of equity. So again, it screams to me that, and even if you bought in 2019, you're still looking at north of 60,000. So it's really across that spectrum of when you bought. All it says to me is really very simple, that people will either get straight again by refinancing, extending the term of the loan, whatever it may be, or if they're worst case scenario, they'll sell. So we're not going to see a tsunami of houses come online, which is in essence what we saw in 2008 with the bursting of the housing bubble. The only way that house prices can drop is if you see a massive influx of supply. Classic supply demand, right? Add more supply, finite amount of demand, prices will adjust accordingly. So am I worried about forbearance? Absolutely not. But if you look at on a state-by-state basis, the share of homes, there are some elevated areas. Certainly Texas is one, Louisiana. Florida is actually in Nevada because of Las Vegas. But Washington State, 3.3%, really not that many at all. So should you be worried? I would say no. Was it a smart plan? Yes, I think it was a lot smarter plan than the moratoria on evictions, which I won't talk about the apartment world. That's caused far greater problems. All right, so in terms of new home market, building permits, horrible when the pandemic hit, but it's been pulling back. And at the same time, housing starts, again, dropped, but again, they've been pulling back. What's been going on with that is very, very simple. It's expensive to build a home. Land prices continue to escalate. Labor costs. We are still down by over 200,000 people for the number of people employed in residential construction at the peak back in 2007. So, and no one wants to learn to become a plumber, a carpenter, an electrician. No one wants to go to vocational school. They're all into the STEM subjects. We talked about this last night. My youngest son, William is useless. William's 17, right? I mean, he could not drive a nail in straight for love nor money. Speed mathematics is what he enjoys. He multiplies big numbers in his head. So he started driving, God forbid. And I said to him, Will, all right, you need to know how to change a tire. Like, Dad, I know. I know you don't. All right, show me. Where's your phone? What do you mean, where's your phone? Oh, AAA, right? What? Well, you call AAA up and they come fix the car. Wow. Anyway, so we need more people getting into construction, and we really do. Because if you've got not enough workers, then what does that do? That forces up the price. So land is expensive, labor is expensive, materials, lumber have come down dramatically in price from the peak we saw several months ago, but it's still a lot of money. Why? Well, a lot of us, what are we doing? We're remodeling our homes because we have been stuck in our homes. What do we do when we look at anything too frequently? We get bored. And so that means one of two things. Either move or, I think I need to extend my deck. I'd like to have a door going out to my garden. We've seen massive run-up in demand for lumber. But it's not just lumber, it's copper, it's steel, it's aluminum, because of still trade wars with China. And by the way, on the lumber side, we still have a tariff, an import tariff on lumber imported from Canada, which is implemented by the prior administration. What do the Canadians ever do bad to us? But we're taxing that as well. And it's also PVC pipe. By the way, PVC pipe tracks oil prices, so as oil prices rise, think about, watch your gas gauge, where you buy your petrol from. If that's going up, then you know PVC prices are going up as well. So land is expensive, labor is expensive, materials are expensive, and finally, regulatory fees. 25 cents of every dollar it costs to build a home in America are fees. Permit fees, water sewer hookup fees, entitlement fees, fees. And on multifamily, by the way, it's 32 cents. So when you combine all those things, what do builders do? Well, they put in all those costs, they put a bit of profit on top, it spits out a number you have to sell the home for it to make sense. What if that number is $800,000, but the market price acceptance point is $400,000? Are you going to build it? No, you won't. Did you build it in 2005? Oh, heck yes, you did. What's the difference? OPM, other people's money. Builders were great spenders of banks' money. Now, today, you can get a construction loan for roughly 62, 63% of total cost. You've got to have some skin in the game. So builders are being far more cautious, or they're building for that luxury market, the upper level market, which is where they can make some money. But where's all the demand? The demand is in those first-time buyers. So unfortunately, they're building, but they're not building what they need to be building to meet where demand is. So new home sales, or new homes rather for sale, have gone up at 360,000, really not anything like the number you need. But so many of these homes now they're for sale, but they haven't been built yet. In fact, many of them haven't even started yet. Now, a lot of buyers say, well, yeah, I've got to move out, so how long is it going to take you to build this house? So you're seeing those listings coming on. But we're also seeing a lot of builders saying, yes, I'll build you the house, this is the price, but if my costs go up, I'm passing it straight on to you. That's a worry for a lot of buyers. So we've seen an increase in inventory because of that. Sales, again, very frenetic, but on a monthly basis, about 60,000. Could be better. So we're seeing that disparity mainly because homes are saying they're for sale, but they're not actually built. People want to move, and move today. They don't want to wait 4 months, depending on where in the country you are. So it is a big problem. And what does that do? That puts upward price pressure on resales because of that supply-demand imbalance. So you've got sales by forecast, 831,000 transactions this year. It is going to increase next year. We will see more construction as those prices of materials start to soften a bit. That's going to take some of the upward price pressure on existing houses, which is why my 2022 forecast for existing homes is far lower than we're seeing this year. So we are going to see some more supply occurring. So here, we did see a little notch up in mortgage rates for a couple of weeks, pulled back, but when we saw that happening, a lot of people said, I don't want to miss the boat, I'm going to buy now. So that did pull some sales forward. Rates rising, albeit modestly, is a good thing. I think it's going to normalize the market to a degree, certainly in terms of price appreciation. New construction, again, as I just said, that will help out the overall market. Move for the burbs. Yes, I see one of the biggest things because of COVID-19. There's several things. One of which is the ability of people to look further out. So they are. I'm not saying everyone's going to leave Seattle and move to Yakima. No, they're not, or Montana. But we are seeing a move away if you could be working part-time at your office and part-time at home. But what has become important in a home has changed. People now, they need dedicated workspaces. See, back in the 80s and 90s, even before then, builders were always building homes with studies, right? I had a home, had the same thing. Did I use it? Heck no, I didn't. But they are now coming back. And if you are representing a home seller, one of the best bits of advice you can give them, if they don't have a study in their home, create a dedicated Zoom space. And people are doing that. The number of TV interviews I did through the pandemic with reporters, even big ones from MSNBC and these guys, they were interviewing me either from their cars or their bedroom closets. They literally were. It's kind of weird. So, but creating those spaces, because a lot of us are going to be working more from our homes. Also markets that have high-speed cable, that's going to be increasingly important. Room separation now again. We walked away from that and got into the open plan format. That has started to shift as well. So we are seeing some differentiations in what people are looking for, but also looking further out. Whereas everyone wanted to be in the big city, now they don't. And if they don't have to work from an office at all, well, then there are markets like here where people can say, well, I can move, I can sell my house in Seattle or wherever, I can come down here and buy a lot of house. I mean, a lot of house, if I don't have to. So we're going to start seeing more of that migration now. The census numbers we haven't got yet because they're delayed and delayed and delayed. And they're not really going to tell us much anyway. Why? Because census is done to where you were on April the 1st of 2020. So it's not really going to be that instructive as to, are we all disappearing off? Are we all moving to the Midwest, which we're not, by the way. But we are seeing migration patterns occurring, mainly people coming out of California. Now, the Western states, pretty much, if you look at the 10 major Western states, they always add population. Rarely do you see population go down. But last year, it went down where? In California. Why? They're coming out of Northern California on I-5. They're coming up. One or two of the city ones are staying in Oregon. The rest are heading into Washington. And we are cheap. Even in Seattle, we're considered cheap. Southern California, not so much. Southern California, they're going to Riverside. So they're going out of the LA basin, but they're just going a bit east. But you are seeing a lot of that people move. In Oregon, they're going out of Portland. They're going across the border into Clark County. So they're coming into Washington. They're still working in Portland across that bridge, which is about to fall down. I swear it is. But they are moving there. So we are going to continue to see that. But that is certainly going to be beneficial to markets like this, both from a remote working standpoint, also a second home standpoint, also a retirement standpoint. So a lot of those people are going to keep on moving. They're going to look to alternative markets where they can get greater value. Retiring to California, no, because of taxes. Oregon, probably not. So they're going to look at different markets, and here can be one of them. So first-time buyers, big, and also a tax credit. Remember, the Biden administration wants to implement another tax credit, which you can use immediately for a first-time buyer for a down payment. Hasn't got there yet. Will it? Who knows? Given the makeup of the Senate, it's probably dubious. But if that happens, that's going to be even more demand from those first-time buyers. Okay, so that's the big picture. Now, let's start looking at what's going on around here. So state-wise, again, jobs lost due to COVID-19, Seattle metro area, obviously the biggest one. You shed about 11,500 jobs in the pandemic, which was literally in a couple of months, February to June. However, way back, here in Seattle, we've got about 120,000. You recovered 8,400 of the jobs. So that's actually pretty good. You're still down by about 3,000 jobs, but you've got a lot of them back already. And that is something is remarkably impressive, I think. So you're doing well. And if we look at unemployment rates, Yakima is still at 6.8. It is a bit elevated. It's kind of a bit unique. You expected everyone, so you look at the peak of where they were in April 2020. And here, naturally, it was, 14.5%, basically the same as the country, has come down, but it is still a bit higher, which is somewhat counterintuitive. Now, you can say, well, leisure. Well, let's look at the reasons why. So if you look at the market here, you added about 100 jobs, negligibly in July. I haven't got the August numbers yet. You lost over 12,000 in 1 month. So you've been adding roughly 200 to 400 jobs returning every month. The bottom is just the longer term trend. So you're still shy, but why are you shy? Well, look at the jobs lost and jobs recovered. That top one is impressive, by the way. That is that leisure and hospitality. That is the bars, restaurants, hotels. Yeah, you shed almost 5,000 jobs. You got 4,000 back. That is impressive, a lot better in terms of ratio than many, many markets across the country. Government employment, again, is getting better. Look at retail. You've recovered all the jobs lost and a lot more. So the retail market is doing extremely well. Education, unsurprising, kids going back to school now. Construction, you're up 100 jobs. It's not that bad. But this is the confusing part. Professional business services. You expect that would be more of those remote workers can work from home. They haven't recovered yet, and that's what's weighing down the unemployment number today. It is the fact, or at least that's keeping it elevated. And manufacturing, and to a lesser degree, financial. So, and that one, by the way, is transportation utilities. So again, it's that bifurcation. I want to see a couple of select sectors just start to pick it up a little bit, and I think they will. And by doing so, I do expect that unemployment rate to drop back down more in line with what we're seeing in the other equivalent sized metro areas in Washington state. Excuse me. As I said earlier, so you're down. When I say the bottom line is that negative number is not true. It means you've actually got more jobs than you had when the pandemic hit. So the shortfall is like the top one: 1,600 jobs in business services, 1,100 manufacturing. Still off 900 leisure and hospitality. So many markets you have got pockets that are doing better than others. But again, as we start moving forward and coming out, hopefully, of the latest round of COVID, we'll start seeing a pickup in that together with removing the enhanced unemployment benefits. In my forecast, we'll probably add shy of 3,000 jobs this year and about 3,000 jobs next year. So we'll see a notch up. It's certainly going to come in a little bit below, but if you get to this, the full recovery in your economy in the metro area is going to happen, but it's going to happen next year, similar to the US, rather than this year. You're doing better given the fact of the number of jobs lost that we saw in 2020, but it's just going to take a while longer. And again, majorly it's because of the uncertainty because of COVID. Unemployment here in it's the metro area, 5.5 in July, decent number. If you break it down though, Benton is down below 5%, so you're doing better here. It's not so much in Franklin County. So, and again, different sizes, not really too surprising, but again, the trend going down is what we all want to see, and I think that momentum will pick up more once we find people saying that they can't just sit on their duffs at home. They've got to go out and get a job. And that is what I do expect to see over the course of the next several months. So originally, yes, drink too much. New infections, yeah. That has certainly slowed down that recovery over the course of the last couple of months. And it's going to be there for a little while. However, I'm hopeful we'll start seeing that start to taper off. It's about vaccine hesitancy, it's still out there. Obviously, Pfizer's now got its full approvals. We'll see more of that. Hopefully, boosters will come starting in October. We are going to get back to normal, believe me. But I would caution you with one thing, and that is the fact, do not expect that we will not see another pandemic for another 100 years. Because the last we saw, 1915, Spanish flu, to the latest one. You're going to see more of them, and we really are. So be prepared. Hopefully it won't be as bad, hopefully we'll be better prepared. But these kind of things are going to happen again, and it won't be a century from now. So we'll see how it all plays out. Education, retail, we know that, but business sector needs to pick up some steam. I'm hopeful that it will, but it's just acting a bit of a headwind right now. But again, overall, and I sit on Governor Inslee's Council of Economic Advisors, and I meet with the governor four times a year. The state is doing better, certainly, but I think your market here will have that full job recovery faster than the state as a whole. All right, so the important part, housing. Breaking it down, 2 counties. And I'm going long, so I'm going to start talking quickly, which is very bad for an Englishman. Think of Benton County. 43% of homes here with a mortgage have more than 50% equity. That is massive. It really is. And so the numbers don't go back before 2014, at least on my data. But that massive rise, that run-up, you started seeing actually in 2019. So big price appreciation, people are sat on a ton of equity. Now, if you look at, on the other side, seriously underwater homes, which is more than 20% in terms of the value relative to the mortgage, less than 2%. Not worried about it. So anyone, again, it's expecting locally, they're going to see some big fallout. Just don't see it happening. But affordability, you are technically... So this is analysis we've done at UW, University of Washington, since 1992, which looks at median income, median home price, and is it technically affordable? So the black line is for all buyers. So you are still affordable, but you're getting perilously close to that 100 line, which marks unaffordable first-time buyers. Because of the price growth you've seen, they are having a hard time. So I mentioned it earlier on. Nationally, we need more homes for them. Affordability is a significant issue for them. On the existing side, remember what I said about listings, how they're taken? Looks like next to nothing. Did see a spike there in late 2019, early 2020. But again, nothing to buy at all. But if you look at new listings, remember what I said earlier on? Still elevated. So you are seeing transactions occurring, but homes are selling so quickly that they're not actually counted. Many of them aren't actually being counted. So the consumer's saying, well, hang on, you've got like 140 homes or 150 homes on the market. Well, why should I bother looking? Because you're also seeing buyer fatigue again, by the way. Buyers who are just like, really? I've got to write the groveling letter to the home seller saying, please choose me. Best one of those letters I ever saw, by the way, it wasn't from a would-be home buyer. It was from their dog. I was like, I love your yard. Please sell me your house. I think I threw up a bit in my throat. We are seeing those things going on. But list prices, $560,000, the average list price now. Look at where you were. You were half of that in 2014. That is a big number. And if you look at a change in list price, 23% year-over-year change. But again, be cautious about year-over-year. It cannot continue at this pace. Given the fact the mortgage rate's going to start to rise, that has to start softening in terms of list price. So people always concentrate on sale prices, right? That's what they do. I don't. I look at list prices. Because sale prices that's what happened before. List prices are what's happening now. They're a leading, not lagging indicator. So all of you should, if you're in our world, which I'm assuming you are, watch list prices more than sale prices. They will tell you far faster what's really going on with the marketplace. So if we look at quarterly closings, that fourth quarter last year, you guys went parabolic, you went gangbusters. So doing well, it's being held back. However, even though we've seen new listings increase, there's just still more demand, there is supply. But if you look at sales by year, on average, you sell about a bit more than 2,100 homes in a year. So in single family, resale homes. Yeah, you'll absolutely beat that this year. Or at least you'll beat the long-term average, which you've done for the last several years. So people are still buying, still moving here. That's certainly a positive thing. But at sale prices, well, that's just kind of scary. It really is. I mean, you're knocking on, I say no, you were, actually last one that would have been July. You hit $500,000. So you pull back a little bit from that now. Sorry, 450, not 500. So, but that trend, again, squint a bit, or if you're blind like me, don't have to squint. The trend has been going up very, very significantly. And sale prices year over year, 25%. That doesn't make sense. Because are we making that much more money every year to service that debt? No, you're not. So you've had a remarkable run, but is that run going to start coming to an end? I think it will. Months of inventory, a balanced market, by the way, here should be 4. 4 months, not 14 days, which is where you are right now. That shows, again, far more buyers than there are sellers. And days on market, 9 is the median days on market. That's not balanced either. So a lot more demand of homes than there is supply. Yes, you're getting into those bidding wars still, but it's got to reach a point where you cannot carry on. And you are getting close to it, but you're not there yet. Here's why. Your prices this year forecast, again, it is year over year, comparing average sale price in 2021 versus 2020, over 12%. But next year it's going to come down, but still over 8%. That is impressive, I think. It's more rational. It has to be given the direction of mortgage rates, but also, again, affordability. And you are getting close. You can't keep on going up because otherwise you do start becoming or losing affordability, and that's going to be a problem. So still, that is a bigger number, by the way, than Seattle and King County. My forecast for King County is about 5. So although King County is obviously a lot more expensive, prices will continue to escalate. They're not going to go backwards still, but they are going to drop down into that single digits, which is actually not a bad thing. All right, on the new construction side, permits. You're not pulling, permits are not enough. You need to be building more housing. If you don't build more, then that's what puts that upward price pressure on resales. This is the number of single-family permits pulled by year going back to 2007. So if you look at, what I pulled is the major markets at single-family permits they pulled in the last 5 years. This also includes my forecast for ownership housing for the next 5 years. Is it positive or negative? Are you building enough to meet my projected demand? It's not total household demand, it's demand from home owners, not renters. No, you're not. There's a shortfall. Now, the biggest one obviously is in Kennewick. The rest of them are fairly minor. You can make those adjustments. But in Kennewick, you're not. You need to pull more permits. You need to build more housing. Listings, no, next to nothing. Been trending down. We know why. Sales, however, are still progressing. You absolutely will hit the long-term average, even though the long-term average is less than 550 units. Yeah, you'll absolutely get there, and you've done that really since coming out of the bursting of the housing bubble. Sale prices was $500,000 year to date, but what you need to do on new construction is don't look at sale price, because if you do, you kind of, I'm probably going to press the wrong button, but I'll try anyway. So you look at that big jump from 2020 to the year to date, you think, well, that can't be right. But what you need to concentrate on is the price per square foot. And I say that because builders can adjust what they build, they adjust the size of what they build. So that's a far better indicator as to really what's going on than looking at the absolute sale price. So share of sales, 1 in 4 right now is new construction. That's a pretty significant number. But what is interesting is this. Normally there's a premium associated with a home that no one's ever used the bathroom before. There just is. So, and historically, there's about a 40% premium for new construction over resale. That's down around 20 now. Builders are becoming more competitive to existing inventory by changing what they're building. So that does attempt to make them a better match potentially for would-be home buyers. So we've seen that drop down dramatically. So builders have changed what they're looking to build to try and garner greater demand. Forbearance. Benton County, 4%, 3.9% is the total number. What does that mean? About 1,300 homes in the entire county are in forbearance today. And a breakdown, obviously, of by market. Is that a big number? No, it's not. Is that number going to continue to drop? Yeah, I expect it to be below 1,000 within a couple of months. Then we'll probably get down and it'll continue trending lower. If you are here and you're worried about, or your clients are worried about, all these people in forbearance, one, it's not a whole ton of people. It really isn't. But secondly, that is a number which has been trending down consistently for the last several months. In Franklin County, equity rich, 44%, a bit more than Benton, which I thought was interesting. In terms of equity rich, more than 50% equity, and about 1% of people are still underwater on their mortgages. So again, a very, very low figure. Affordability, okay for all buyers, first-time buyers still suffering, even though the price spread is a bit different in Franklin over Benton. So hard for first-time buyers. Why? Well, there really is nothing to buy. I mean, literally. I mean, listings which were back in 2012, 350, down about 30. Not many at all. And by the way, these are numbers which I adjust for seasonality, otherwise they'd kind of look like this. So it's, again, very, very low levels of inventory, but the light blue line, new listings, still seeing it. Those listings come on the market, so transactions are absolutely still occurring. List prices, wow, almost $500,000. It is pretty impressive. Again, go back to 2012. List prices have more than doubled in the last 8 years. That's an amazing number. But we've seen a more modest increase. So given where we are and the rate of appreciation you've seen, we've just seen a bit of a pullback in the year-over-year change. But again, I'm still cautious over year-over-year numbers because of the pandemic, obviously. Closings, good, and very solid. So there is still, without a doubt, demand. You will, without a doubt, exceed the long-term average, which is about, not that many, but 680 homes per year on the existing single-family arena. Sale prices, yeah, this is weird. We saw a massive spike for a month and it pulled back and it jumped back up again, still north of $400,000. So sales prices are going up and they've, again, more than doubled, almost tripled over the course of the last 9 years. An amazing number. And almost 19% year over year in terms of sale prices. But look at that, 40%. Again, small markets tend to walk to the beat of their own drum. You see it's kind of massive swings. The smaller the market is because you can have some unique products, some very expensive homes, a handful of them come on, they can adjust the average overall. But you have seen some remarkable increases. But again, you've got less than 2 weeks, about 12 days of inventory at the existing rate of transactions. That's not balanced. It really isn't. Last time you saw balanced, I would argue again, would probably be 2014. So it's been several years since you could perceive it as being a balanced market. And it takes an average of a week for a home to go under contract. That's pretty quick. So all you brokers out there, no wonder you've got big grins on your faces. Things are looking pretty darn good for you. If only there was more to buy. Prices up this year, 17% is my forecast. Next year, roughly 10%. So still a very, very solid number. So and that a lot of it is going to be driven by migration, by people coming here from somewhere else. On the new side, again, it's a tiny market. Yeah, permit demand, again, it's a very small area per se. So you are seeing roughly keep up with demand. Why? Well, I mean, Othello, Pasco actually is interesting. So Pasco is pulling a lot of permits and it's doing well. So that's a market where you're actually seeing some of that balance occurring. They're really small markets, are almost negligible. So you're doing a better job in Franklin County over getting permits, housing permits, than you are here. So is it balanced? No, not quite, but it's certainly better than I see elsewhere. Listings have notched up, but again, very low. Sales, yeah, you will, again, beat it, the long-term average in terms of overall transactions for new housing. Sale prices, massive spike there, north of $200 per square foot. That is a pretty solid number, actually, for where you are in the country. So we'll see those rates increase, but the share of sales has jumped. Because you're pulling more permits, guess what? There's demand for it. And as there's demand for it, the share goes up if you're seeing not enough existing homes on the market. So that's how it's supposed to look. So I gave credit to the people, either builders down there who are saying, you know, we can make this work. They're pulling permits, they're building homes, market share is increasing relative to existing stock. And here's why. The premium, which historically has been almost 25% premium for new over resale, almost now a wash. That's fascinating. It really is. They've somehow figured out how to make it work, even though in terms of overall size of the marketplace, it's not that big. Forbearance, a bit more forbearance in Franklin County, but again, 4%. What does that mean? Less than 600 units are in forbearance today. So, might sound like a lot, but that again is a number which has trended down from almost 9%, which we saw back in July of last year. Has been pulling back. It will continue to do so, especially given the pricing structures we've already talked about, which means that people are sat on a lot of equity. And therefore, they're not going to walk away from it. Market's good, you'll sell to get out from that if for some reason you're not able to get things straight again. So, from a housing standpoint, what do I think? Yeah, we've seen some increase in listings. That's been good, but is it balanced? No, it's not. It's far from balanced. And I'm afraid that's going to be the way for a while. But we will start seeing some of that price growth just start to taper off a bit because of affordability and also modestly rising mortgage rates. So that means that anyone that's expecting to see kind of 15, 20% price growth, no, it won't. That also tells me one thing, which is you as a broker, when you're going out and you're doing your CMAs, etc., don't be bullied by your clients. There are some instances where your client says, hey, you know what? I looked at Zillow. Yeah, by the way, don't ever do that. And say, my house is worth X, and you've done your homework, and say, no, it's worth Y. At some point, is it worthwhile? Is it worth your time, your effort, your money to take this thing? Some will say, yes, it is, because we'll get there. Not always the case. You will always know far more accurately what someone's home is worth rather than them. I guarantee it. Stick to your guns. But because people have seen such a rapid increase, they think that can go on forever. No, it can't. Also, they want it to go on forever because they want to retire to Maui. Good luck. So just be a bit thoughtful. First-time buyer demand. Yes, lots and lots of it. Now, you're seeing increasing growth in third-party logistics, warehousing. You're going to bring on a lot of new jobs coming in into the area over time. Those people need to live somewhere. They are not all renters. You need to figure out how to build for this age demographic because there's a massive opportunity there, which is just not being utilised as best it can. Now, I know builders are having a hard time because of all the reasons we've talked about. They want to buy. These kids, they really do. Second home buyers, yes, you'll still see more of those. They are not going to go away. They will also continue. So they're going to see some of that. And they also, many of them think you are still cheap. So they'll come here as well. So that is going to be part of a component which actually can allow prices to look as if they are continuing to increase at fairly significant rates. And in fact, they are. I mean, both Franklin and Benton counties, the price growth forecast I gave you is well above the long-term average. My numbers go back to roughly 2004. So, yeah, you've done pretty well because of it. So in closing, the economy here is going to recover, full recovery by next year. Home prices have done remarkably well. They are going to start slowing a bit, but still, we will see that growth above the long-term average. Demand's still there, build for the first-time buyer. Mortgage rates are going to go up. That's okay. It really is. And don't worry about forbearance. Don't let your clients worry about it. That's one of the biggest issues they have. They think that they were going to see a tsunami of foreclosures. Not going to happen. Any way you cut it, just aren't going to be there. And with that, if I've got time, I would be delighted to answer any questions if you have one, or if you're not sure we have time or not. But if you do, yes, miss.
When you were describing the job numbers and it said non-ag, is that agriculture?
Yes, it is.
And what do you describe or what qualifies as an ag job then in this industry?
By definition, associated number is taken from either from the BLS or from the state. The state defines it. Agricultural workers are crop pickers, cherries mainly. That's the biggest component of it, which are, in essence, we exclude them because they are seasonal as opposed to permanent.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Really? No one? Yeah, I figured you would. Sure.
Just a question on so you showed Franklin County as having a surplus of homes, but yet they're pouring.
Not a surplus homes. It means that what I've done is I created a 5-year forecast for new owner households. New households are going to be coming into the county that are going to be owning their homes rather than renting it. That's a forward look between over the next 5 years. So what I did is then relate that back to the number of permits that were pulled over the past 5 years. So if you say that If you continue at pulling permits at the same level that you were 5 years ago, will that meet the demand that we will see over the course of the next 5 years? So not a surplus, but it means that you are pulling enough permits to meet what my forecasted demand will be, as opposed to many markets across the country where it's always a deficit. They're not pulling anything like enough permits. And that does tend to come in mainly in larger metropolitan areas. Now here we have, obviously, the Growth Management Act, we know, created in 1990, ratified by all 37 counties in 1993. It defines where you can and you cannot build. Inside urban growth boundaries, you can build housing. Outside, it's 1 house per 5 acres or 1 house per 20 acres. Those boundaries, I guarantee you, are not going to be moved. They're not. As simple as that. So that means that in some markets, we're actually running out of land. If you run out of land, that pushes up the land price, et cetera, et cetera. So what I think we need to look at is saying, why can't you build multifamily, bear with me a second, inside single-family zoned areas? Now, when I say multifamily, no, I'm not talking about 60-story high-rises, no. But it's a model which has already been created by the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and actually has been ratified by Oregon State. It kicks into play in May of next year. So anywhere in the state where you can build single-family homes, you are allowed to build duplexes, triplexes, or 4-packs. So again, not massive apartment projects. Is that going to be an answer, solve the affordability problems? No, it's not, because it means in essence, you've got to tear down a home that's already there and build denser housing. A lot of people push back on it. I get more pushback on that when I say it's a good idea than almost anything else, because they think it's going to change the makeup of their neighborhood. I can show you examples all over the place of a row of houses, and I'd say which one's single family and which one's not. Most people get it wrong. So you really can't tell. But the presumption is we don't want change, right? We want to keep what we've got as is. But there's only a finite amount of land out there. And so that, I think, is something which we need to see more of. And that is something maybe your council members might want to start being a little bit thoughtful about, because you need to increase density, certainly in certain submarkets. Yes, sir.
On your model, you showed that first-time home buyers, they're below the affordability index. And so we're assuming that mortgage rates are going to increase over the next year, which would then assume further price them out of the market.
Yeah.
So how much of the market do they make up at this time? And then how could a builder prepare themselves? They're going to try to build for first-time home buyers, but they're going to
Right. So if you look at the Kennewick metropolitan area, of homes that were sold in the last 12 months using conventional financing, not jumbo mortgages, 43% of homes the last 12 months in the MSA were bought by millennials. Yeah. Those are numbers straight out of Ellie Mae. It's not me making it up. It's Ellie Mae comes out with a really cool report every month, which I get. And so they are significant. They're significant. The lowest part actually was out in Clallam County, where it's about 31%. Walla Walla, it's almost 50. So, but again, these are people buying homes using conventional financing. Now, so are they, even though it's technically unaffordable, that's what's a misnomer, because what you do is you take median income for the county, which is fine, and I adjust it down for a first-time buyer, because they're going to be younger, they're likely as a household not making that median that we see across the board. Now, those that are, sure. Or they're going to mum and dad and saying, lend me more, which they do that as well. So they are making it work. Yes, they're going in with lower down payments, but they have a lot of credit, which is surprising. So they are pretty much sucking up the lower price point homes in your marketplace. So they're out there, they are buying. Yes, it's technically unaffordable, but that still means that none of them can afford it. Yes, they can, and certainly those millennials can. That make sense? Cool. Anyone else? You sure? Last chance, I've got a plane to catch.
Matthew, a question. I read that home buyers in 2019 and 20, when they were surveyed, they plan on being in their home, median group plan on being 15 years. Yeah. So historically we used to move every 5 years in the country. Why? Well, need a new job. I find one in Iowa, kids, dog, car, off the wire, we go. Well, we've changed that. Now, if we are changing jobs, we tend to now focus more on where we are rather than moving somewhere else. Point one. Point two is we're not retiring when we're supposed to. And why we're staying in the workforce longer? Because we're living longer. We have greater financial needs, greater healthcare needs. So we're not retiring, so we're staying at home longer as well. And there's another reason why it's interesting if you think about retirees, is that a lot of them, even if they do move, they're not doing the classic downsize to
buy a little home in a place called Yuma, Arizona. It's kind of where old people go to die. So they're not doing that. What are they doing? They're either not moving or they're buying a home of equivalent size. And why are they doing that? They've got too much stuff. And here's the kicker. It doesn't matter if great-grandma bought the dresser across in a covered wagon in 1780. You try and give it to the kids, it'll be on eBay in a week. So the old day handing stuff down to the kids, they're not doing it. So they're staying in now, the trouble is, if you're not seeing that downsizing, the move-up buyers, they're stuck with lack of supply. And if their move-up buyers aren't buying, then the first-time buyers are shot. So yeah, right now in this area, in your metro area, it's about 10 years. And it's certainly more than double where it was probably a couple of decades ago. So again, we're just not moving for our jobs as frequently as we used to do. And we're also said we're living longer, we're not moving. And so that trouble is, if you're not seeing that turnover of houses, then that doesn't help the marketplace, and especially not if new construction is not keeping up, because we continue to add new households in the country. Admittedly at a lower rate over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, but we still are. And then pesky millennials, and then Gen Y after that, then Gen Z after that. 69% of millennials believe that buying a home will be the most astute financial investment they'll ever make. However, 73% think they can't qualify for a mortgage. That's the kicker. So they're out there, but we said you're not seeing that turnover, and that's just classically now, and it could probably be exaggerated because of the work from home. And by the way, the work from home thing, I don't think it's going to be black and white. I don't think all of us are going to be either working full-time from home or full-time from an office. Now, some, like Jack Dorsey, so Twitter, yeah, they said everyone, don't ever come back to work. But most companies, the Microsofts, Amazon, et cetera, they really are looking to that blend, but they've postponed things. It was supposed to start on Labor Day. They're now doing this January 1, making those announcements. So I don't think that we're going to see that mass migration out, but I think we will see more turnover, mainly from people moving out of the urban areas, going a bit further out. And for those of you familiar with Seattle and King County, they're going to sell in King County. They're going to go north to Snohomish County, south to Pierce, west to Kitsap. And yeah, they'll come into the office a couple of days a week. Yes, it's going to be a crappy commute, but they're going to get twice as much house for the money than they would do in King County. We're seeing a lot of that occurring right now, which is actually creating gentrification in some of these subordinated neighborhoods.
Any other questions?
Are we done? Can I do it now? Yeah, hang on. The lady is about to say something. I thought she was.
Yeah, do you foresee a significant increase in multi-generation families?
Yeah, multi-generational families is a good question. That tends to be very much ethnically driven. So in markets which have a high propensity for ethnic minorities, especially Asian families, yeah, absolutely. And as we start seeing more of them, which we haven't seen that migration into the US from Asia for the last 4 years, I think we'll start seeing that kick up again, and that absolutely is big for them. And there are certain select markets as well. I mean, Federal Way has got the highest percentage of Korean immigrants of anywhere in the country. So we're seeing a lot of that. So I think it is ethnically driven more than anything else. So it is going to be a piece of the puzzle. I don't expect it to be something which is going to take over at all. But we are certainly have been seeing a growth in multi-generational housing over the course of the last probably decade. So we will see more of that, but it does tend to be far more from immigrants than anyone else. That tends to be either Asian or South American more than anyone. Certainly not European. So you've been remarkably patient with me. Hopefully you've understood what I said. I know I'm English and I do speak a bit quickly. Hopefully one day you'll invite me to come back again, but I hope you will have a great 2022. Enjoy it, and I appreciate you taking time out today to come and listen to an old economist wax poetic about the economy and the housing market. So thank you very much.
We'll be out here after. If you want to swing up and ask a question of him, great. If you want to get a photo op with him because he's a rock star, go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's cool. On your sheet, just so you know, to wrap this up, there is remember we had the video on Ninja last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, before Labor Day, and numbers you need to know that you should be familiar with, and we're working on these to be emailed to you every morning. Okay, if it's be weekly or it might be daily, we're checking on to see how that would work best. So as of yesterday, active listings 335 versus last year 398. Of those, 79 were new construction in the MLS, resale 256. Listings taken this year, so you go back and you look active under contract sold that had a listing date of this year. We had 3527 homes that divided by 256, we averaged 13.7 homes listed per day. Contracts written, again, with the contract, with either they're active with a bump, under contract or sold, and the contract date was this year. We had 3484, which is an average of 13.6 per day. We're averaging 13.7 listings, we're selling 13.6, are going under contract. As Matthew said, 7 days on the market, 6 days, 14 days, whatever it might be. Contracts in the last 30 days, 434. 14.5, up a little bit from the average month average, so 14.5 homes a day went under contract in the last 30 days. Okay, you guys have been busy. We're still seeing multiple offers. We saw a good bunch of multiple, 4 or 5 offers on a little place in Benton City. Benton City's become more affordable, more desirable. That little commute doesn't matter anymore. And they get more house. So we're seeing activity there. Total annual sold properties last 12 months were 41, so they have a close date of the last 12 months, okay? We're averaging 11.3 a day. Okay, so we'll get this to you so you can talk intelligently, you can calm some of our buyers and sellers down, be patient with your buyers. As Matthew said, there's some buyer burnout. I think there might be some agent burnout. You guys have been busy and running a lot of contracts and not getting accepted, so stay with it. The other thing that Ninja says, look at loan applications, and I don't know if Matthew's got that number better than I do, but I just looked online. It was, from the previous week, it's down 1.9%. It was a refinance index, it was down 3, but the purchase index was only down 1.2. So the refinance may be going away, but the purchase is still there, okay? One last thing, and then we'll get out of here, and that is Craig Ritchie. Is Craig here? I didn't see him come in. He had a great idea. He told me last week on the phone, he had a cross sale, multiple offers, again, talking to the other agent, communicating with the listing agent. He told them, he said, hey, we'd like to have an inspection. Would it be okay with your seller if we put something in like buyer agrees not to ask for any repairs that don't exceed $2,000? He did it twice, one at $2,000, one at $1,000, got both offers accepted. So you're taking that fear away that seller's going to be nickel and dime together on that inspection by telling them we won't ask for any repairs that exceed. If they're more than $2,000, we're going to ask for them. If they're less than $2,000, we're not going to ask for them. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, and again, he talked with the listing agent, communicated with them to find out what would be in the best interest of the seller. Okay? All right, anything else for the good of the order? We're all good? All right, well, those of us that don't know, what we do is if you're in a huddle, we go 1, 2, 3, and we're getting so good at this, we do it on 3 all the time. Okay? So we go 1, 2, 3, and we clap because we want to put all this information into our heads. Okay? All right, so ready? 1, 2. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.